morning or good afternoon, based upon which time zone you are connecting for this topic. This topic we will discuss about some of the hype and reality of zero trust. So let's get started. About me, I am Abbas Kudrati and I work for Microsoft as a Chief Cybersecurity Advisor within Cybersecurity Solution Group. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. And before joining Microsoft, I have been a CISO for a number of years. So for this topic, let's look at some of the background, how zero trust or the whole concept has just started. So back in 1990s were the days when everything was within the network, and we operate in a way that we trusted our employee because they were all within our office. Maximum connectivity what we had is while we connect two offices using WAN, and our employees were getting access to our resources using username and password combination, and it was very trustworthy network, I would say. However, things did change over a period of time, and we started looking at era of VPN got introduced. We started using dial-up network for connecting to our office. By the 1994, internet was introduced, and there were more traction within the academia at that time, and then corporate also started using lease line and over the public infrastructure. And all of a sudden, we started seeing more of a private network getting connected from the outside world. Firewall was introduced back in those days. We saw Microsoft went internet first in somewhere in December 1995. We saw Salesforce has launched their SaaS offering. We saw Starbucks has introduced Wi-Fi in 2007. Microsoft introduced Office 365 launch in 2011. So all these new technologies and era of connectivity has introduced a plethora of other devices connected to your network, and we entered in a situation what we see today, that we started building security over the top of everything what we had it. But that did not solve the problem of how are we going to secure especially the resources which are, or the employee who are working from outside the network, and the way they are trying to connect it. And if you look at the reality of those perimeter-based network, this perimeter-based network was more focused from an internal focus, as we call it. We used to trust our employee because they were inside our office network. We also had a challenge of single point of attack. If anything has been breached or anything has been targeted within our network, the whole network is going to get collapsed, because we did not had a micro segmentation as during those days. We had some sort of demilitarization as such, but not an overall micro segmentation. And the security and IT team were kind of dispersed and disjoint as well. And although we had number of tools at that time, but it was not as effective as what we tried to achieve today. So this modern approach does require a different set of thinking, where especially when the perimeter is no longer where it used to be at the edge of the network, as we had, like we had a perimeter firewall, and that's what we used to manage it. So the whole thing has been a challenge to us. And that's where the term of zero trust architecture came up back in 2004. Some thought leaders such as Jericho Foundation, that early 2003 actually, they started a concept of what we call it build security within your DNA type of concept came out. And of course, that was something which Forrester has coined the word, which we call it today as a zero trust. In 2013, even Microsoft has coined identity-driven security, focusing more on identity, and they introduced a mobile or an EMS mobility suite as a part of their strategy. And in the same year, we have also seen Google coming up with the implementation of Beyond Curve, which was kind of a demonstrator of how they're going to operate the whole thing for you. So, what is zero trust? So if we look at it, zero trust, I would say, is more of security strategy rather than a product suite. Of course, product does help you, the process does helps you, but it is more of a mindset. When I say zero trust model, the concept we are trying to build or the strategy which we are trying to build is going to help us in how we can eliminate those trust-based network location within our perimeter. And we want to leverage the identity, and we want to leverage the device health. Those are the two main. Of course, there are other elements, but the two main category or the signals we're going to capture is from identity side, which is from the people per se, and the device, which is from the hardware or the device which you're going to connect to your network from a remote location, trying to access your data. Data is still going to be considered as a crown jewel. How we're going to manage these two areas, accessing your data in a model where we can build a trust at every attempt or every signal. What does it mean by that? We are going to use something called conditional access. Now, conditional access is something where if then else statement kind of a scenario where we want to prevent the network access from lateral movement which is coming from outside and trying to access our resources by verifying if those identity are healthy or if those devices are healthy and meets our security and compliance requirement. And I keep saying, right, zero trust is a mindset. What do I mean by mindset? Ultimately, zero trust it's not only about the product, and it is not a state where you want to reach at the end of the day. It is all about mindset and resulting changing in the methodology how you're going to operate. Now, key thing here is to let go your assumption and realizing that you are going to operate in a threat environment where our assume breach principle comes into play. We need to build up that architecture in a way that we're going to have an infrastructure which is inherently safe. That should be our mindset, and it's like going to pitch up a pop tent in a battleground. So let's look at some of the mindset scenario which I was talking about as a part of this presentation. First one is on don't accept complicacy. Now, in this case, our mindset should be there is a single biggest shift of the zero trust. What we see today is a flat network and a VPN, but we need to assume that if the request is originating from a known network, then it must be safe. That's what we assume, right? However, that assumption has to be changed. We assume that the model that protected us yesterday will protect us tomorrow as well. However, zero trust demand that we abandon these kind of an assumptions and try to validate and exercise control over every aspect of our access, which I was talking about on device side and as well as on our identity side. Second one we talk about is we need to assume that all resources are on open internet. We had created that, Microsoft had created that when we started our journey for zero trust. That was our one of the first attempt. Any application we create, it has to be internet ready or internet first. That's what we had to build into our thought process or in our strategy. Trust no single source, because I keep saying that we need to verify signals from multiple sources: identity, device, network, location, many. We just can't rely on just one source of truth saying that if the device is managed device and I'm going to give access to my network. It cannot be a single source of reliance on a single source. We need to build upon a breach containment. And what does it mean by that? We need to build a defensive layer, or we call it assume breach scenario, or we call it a multiple layer of defense. If my first layer of defense is been breached or been compromised, my second defensive layer comes into picture. My next one is on the standards of a security. Now we need to build up when we are building up this strategy, you need to standardize on certain things. For example, you want to have a stronger identity, then you need to be focused on two-factor authentication. Could be a FIDO2 compliant or Auth0 kind of a thing. Those has to be built up as a part of your journey, right? Of course, vendor are helping you in that particular scenario. For example, multi-factor authentication. Microsoft has a free tool for that. However, you need to build upon that. Last but not the least is there are not going to be enough human. That's a fact of today's world. There's a huge demand of security resources out in the market, and we are going to face challenge of continuously lack of human resources who can manage your cybersecurity. That's where the concept of using automation, using the playbook, using a notebook, or I call it using machine learning and AI algorithm to assist your existing employee, how much automation you can bring it in your security operation or in your day-to-day work. That's going to be something which you need to focus on, especially when you're having when you're building up your whole strategy for zero trust. Let's look at the core three principles of zero trust, because that's what we keep driving upon. So these three core principles, as we call it, first one being the trust, but verify explicitly. The trust is gone away here. Here in this zero trust concept, we need to work with explicitly verify. Trust no one, verify everyone. What do I mean by verify everyone? Irrespective of your employee or the device or identity which you have issued are within the network or outside the network, you need to treat them with the same lens of explicitly verifying. I'm not going to allow anyone to access my resources unless I verify them, irrespective whether they're my employee internally accessing the resources or coming from outside. Same treatment. The second principle within the mindset we talk about is our least privilege access control. That means no one should have a standing access of my resources for an administrative purpose. Everyone is required to having access based on need to know and need to do basis. That means we need to follow something like just in time access, just enough access, and having a least privilege in my environment. My third principle is on assume breach. That means I need to have a mindset of a defensive layer within my company. We call it building my network or building my architecture in a way that if one control, my defensive control has been breached, I have a second control in place which will going to help me in defending my network. So these are the top three principles. Now let's look at what are the various myth we want to bust upon zero trust. We always think that zero trust is a bulletproof which is going to solve the world hunger by implementing this and is going to help me with securing everything, right? So let's look at some of these myths and let's look at what you need to really focus on. First one being on the literal. Now in this case, absolutely trusting nothing in your environment is neither a pragmatic nor possible. Take it. It's not that it is not 100% possible to go to. There will be some resources that you need to work around that. While the approach of the security investment with the assumption that any component can fail, you have to limit your time and the resources in a way that we are going to make a smart prioritizations and a smart decision making, right? Next one is don't take this as an adjective. So zero trust is neither a product or it's neither a service. It is as I was talking about, is it a mindset and is the strategy on how you're going to drive the whole architecture decision. You are not going to take a big bang approach here. You need to start at a very small level and then slowly grow up on that. Third one is you can't, as I was talking about, it's not a shiny box that you can buy from the market and build it and you say, I'm a zero trust certified company, or I was solved the problem. It's not a product which you can buy from the market. It is not going to be something instant as well. It's a journey. Microsoft itself took almost 3 years on this, and we are still continuing on this journey because there are lots of components in that. Based on your risk posture, what you want to achieve, and which problem you're going to solve by taking smaller steps you need to start the journey. It's not something instant that you're going to do it and finish everything in a 1 month or 2 months or 3 years, 3 months or maybe 6 months or 1 year. It's a journey which has to go step by step. You have to have a mindset or a destination in the mind, which problem you're going to solve today. What are the first start with your risk element, what risk you have and which risk you're going to solve. In a way, it is like a project management. You start the project, you should have an end destination of the project. So you need to manage it as a project with the lens of a project management methodology. You need to have a destination in your mindset, what I want to achieve. If I start with my securing the identity as a part of my zero trust journey, then how much identity security I want to implement, what I want to do as a step-by-step approach, single sign-on, multi-factor authentications, and all those things come into picture. It's not one size fit for all. The approach which has worked for me within Microsoft as a part of our role, it's not necessary that you need to take the same approach. There might be a different approach, and I keep saying that based on your risk posture, based on your business need, you need to define that particular the whole project scenario. So start bite size. It's not one size fit for all. Revolutionary. So we have seen the history how the zero trust concept has revolutionized in so many years, and it is continuously changing it. So what you are doing today, you need to keep on in touch with the market. What things may change in the coming month. Could be a technological change, and also could be the risk or a business change what you have in your company. So it does goes through a number of myth busting facts finding. In that, you need to really think through those facts and decide accordingly how you want to start with. So how am I going to start? That's a main question that we keep getting. How do I get started? How do I get started? So let's look at it. How do I get started? The first one is making zero trust a reality. First, are you aware of what zero trust? As a part of this presentation, we touched upon some of the basic concept, what zero trust is all about, right? So have the understanding of a zero trust. Give an awareness session to your entire team by assembling those V team, because it's not a single person who's going to drive all this. You need to have a team of resources who will work with you on this journey. So you need to have a good stakeholder management skills, as well as you need to have a good buy-in from the C-level. Okay, that's one of the first thing. Where you are today, where you want to go. So look at the maturity model, which I'm sharing as a part of the screen, aka.ms/ZT model, which will help you in what you have today as a traditional model. So let's zoom into the traditional model. So this is my traditional model in terms of how it looks like. So where I am today in terms of my existing, what my network security is, and the way I'm managing my perimeter, and what are the minimum threats and protection strategies what I have in my traditional model. You need to understand your ingress and ingress and egress model. You have too many such input-output point to make it simple, all those techie words, right? You need to understand this maturity model in those 3 steps. What you have traditionally, where you want to achieve in an advanced mode, and how you're going to reach to an optimal level within your zero trust journey. Right? And I keep saying zero trust is not about identity and device. The way you want to start, definitely identity is a good place to start with, where you want to verify identity based on the risk they have. But also you need to look at the other components what you have as a part of your zero trust architecture. So first, starting with identity. Second, verifying my device health, my device security, my device compliance. Whole thing is about the data protection, which is at the centerpiece of it. So how I'm going to protect my data against and how I'm going to allow access to the data based on which are confidential and which are restricted based on the classification what you have. I also need to focus on hardening the application and protecting my infrastructure. And last but not the least, on governing of the network as well. And there are many components into that. I'm not going to go in detail of each of them, and I will show you a tool, which is a Microsoft assessment tool, which is going to help you in that assessment. So let's look at quickly how the whole policy or how the whole concept of zero trust model looks like in a larger scale. So first concept, I want to identify my user risk, which I'm going to get it from my identity factors such as two-factor authentication or impossible travel, or if my identities are being accessed from an unusual location, then the company, maybe they are looking at from, or they are trying to get, the employee is not within the country and he's trying to get access, or she's trying to get access from other country, which could be a risky location for me. All those parameters has to be identified. On the device side, I want to know if the device is compliant, it is managed, or is it infected. Based on the signals and by applying those threat intelligence, our security policy engine, which is the conditional access engine, which you have configured based on your organization policy. And I keep saying, this is your organization policy based on your risk posture, which you want to achieve on it, right? So based on that organization policy, which you have it, and based on what risk you want to mitigate, you then apply those control over either your data, over your application, or your legacy application, or your network, right? Let's look at another view of it, which can give you a little bit of a better clarity. So I get my all the conditions on the left, which is from my identity provider, from my federated or Google or whatever identity provider I'm using. I get my device health from Android, iOS, or Mac, or Windows, my geolocation, on-prem, current location within my company or outside, and type of application that I'm using, thin application or a thick application or a client base. They are used with, or the signals are being captured into a machine learning algorithm. We call it conditional access engine, which gives you a risk score, and it evaluates the risk on a real-time basis, and then you apply the control what you see on the right hand side, which is whether am I going to allow them the access, am I going to limit the access, apply MFA, or reset the password because their identity has been compromised, or I'm going to block the legacy application. You can follow all that approach accordingly. Where does our partner ecosystem comes into picture? Because Office 365 is one of the key SaaS application where everyone is trying to use it, or most of the companies are using it, or in the plan, in a journey of how it is. And the one biggest challenge we've been asked is, how am I going to facilitate the direct access to the internet for Office 365? That's where our partner like Zscaler comes into play, and that's one of the most qualified security vendor for Office 365 security, which has number of technical pieces within their product, which helps you for your network connectivity to have better security in that, for mobility, mobile device management. We talk about how we can have a security for the managed and unmanaged devices. It helps you with traffic inspection on that area, including no SSL inspection, as we call it. There are a number of other features which they provide. But to give you better clarity, I want to show you an architecture diagram, and of course I have a link which you can follow and look at in detail how Zscaler solution can fit in your overall zero trust architecture. So here is a detailed diagram where it helps you with a real-time log analysis, because you can send all those pieces into our Azure Sentinel by deploying the policy engine from Zscaler as a centerpiece. It also helps you with the posture management on using our Microsoft EDR. It also helps you with authentication as well. So you can have a multi-factor authentication using Zscaler technology as well, especially when you are talking about identity and identity protection and authentication mechanism using our Azure AD. And there are a number of other features which will help you in identifying the device risk, helps you with the single sign-on, helps you apply those security policy posture management as we discuss about. So it's a fantastic product which you should look at it, and how it helps you in an overall zero trust architecture journey by applying the concept of a multi-layer, and applying the concept of authentication and device management as well as a part of it, right? Quickly go through a different view of an architecture. I'm not going to go in detail. This is I will leave the slide deck for you to go through. This is how the whole architecture piece looks like if you want to put it on a one page. The centerpiece, what you see, conditional access engine, that's where the combination of the Zscaler comes into play, which you can use it very well within your architecture design. For more detail, I would highly encourage you go and look at my aka.ms Zero Trust portal. That's a Microsoft portal, and this is a tool which I was talking about, which looks like this. zero trust maturity model, which you can get access from that particular site, where you should go and go step by step in terms of identity. You go and answer those basic questions which we ask you as a part of the maturity assessment, and it gives you a plan. Similarly, device, application, infrastructure, data, and network. Go and answer all those questions as a part of your maturity assessment questionnaire, and at the end of the questionnaire, it is going to give you kind of a work plan which you should follow in terms of what you should do next. I will leave with lots of other learning resources with you, which you can follow as and when you can. And the slide deck is available for you to download, and download is available for that for you to go through in detail later on. With that, I will be online during this session to answer any real-time question you have. Feel free to ping me and chat with me during the time of this particular session. I'm happy to answer any question if you have at that particular time. Thank you, and thanks for your attention.